Chapter 45-32. Huangfu Xing raised his head in a daze, his eyes staring deeply at Gu Zixi. In his eyes, there was hesitation and helplessness. He was also unable to sort out his thoughts at this moment. He held Gu Zixi's hand and held it tightly. It was as if only by holding her could he feel her by his side. Gu Zixi slowly approached him. Soon after, she stood up and hugged his head. Pressing it into her embrace, she gently soothed his emotions. Towards Huangfu Sheng. She, who grew up with him, was naturally clear about it. She was very clear about Huangfu Sheng's thoughts at this moment. All she could do was to stay by Huangfu Sheng's side and give him warmth. On the other side, Yan Xiaoyi used her elbow to nudge Qiao Jin. Did you hear that? As long as you are with that kid, it's possible to rebuild the Huangfu family. If the Huangfu family is destroyed, then so be it. Isn't it better to take this opportunity to reshuffle the cards? Qiao Jin raised his hand and held Yan Xiaoyi's arm. With a little force, he pulled her into his embrace. That ordinary and mediocre face made it shine even brighter, like colored glass, deep and seductive. Yan Xiaoyi stretched out her hand and pinched his face fiercely. The touch of her skin was extremely real. Don't think that you can use your face to divert my attention. The more you act like this, the more it means that you care about the Huangfu family. Yan Xiaoyi said. Qiao Jin hooked his arm around the woman's neck and bent down to bite her lips. That pair of glazed black eyes shone with an even more enchanting luster, glistening brightly. I have left the Huangfu family since I was young. What happens to the Huangfu family is not important to me. He replied in a low voice, without much emotion. Yan Xiaoyi laughed coldly. I know better than anyone what you are thinking in your heart. She pinched Qiao Jin's face harshly. Only when a red mark appeared on Qiao Jin's face did she let go. Her fingertips lightly touched the red mark on Qiao Jin's face, and she curled her lips with a cold smile. This face of yours is really realistic. Qiao Jin's large palm covered Yan Xiaoyi's hand, completely enveloping her small hand in his palm. He pulled her into his arms and hugged her tightly. He didn't want the person in his arms to see his current expression. Yan Xiaoyi buried herself in his embrace and wrapped her arms around his waist. She softened her tone. You know very well that the Huangfu clan has lost its purpose of existence and has become a capital to show off. Didn't Qing Luo say it already? As long as old Master Huangfu is willing, he can stay in the Gu residence, and after the matter has ended, we will reform the Huangfu family, a new Huangfu family that belongs to us. Qiao Jin did not speak again. But his hands were wrapped around Yan Xiaoyi's. He exerted more strength and pressed her tightly in his arms. After Yi Qing Luo pulled Dmo Xian out of the main hall, she rushed towards another courtyard. Dmo Xian pulled her. Are you going to look for Ren Jianming? I promised him that I would help him save someone. Yi Qing Luo slapped her forehead. It was in order to save that person that I went to the Gu residence's warehouse and discovered the secret in the ancestral hall. She had been unconscious for a few days in the barbaric Blood Bone King's memory space. Ren Jianming would probably go crazy from anxiety, right? Dmo Xian replied. On the second day after you went missing, he left. Yi Qing Luo. Left? He dragged a crippled body and left the Gu residence. Did he want to be captured back by Ren Jianming, to present his head to her? Or did he want Gong Xia Zhu to capture him back to be the prince consort? End of this chapter. Chapter 45-33. As though he had seen through Yi Qing Luo's thoughts. Dmo Xian's slender fingers poked her head. I know, I will definitely do what I promised others. Yi Qing Luo's eyes lit up. She grabbed his big palm with both hands. A pair of long and narrow eyes blinked. His face was filled with obvious joy. You helped him? Looking at the expression on the young lady's face, Dmo Xian raised his brows. He did not speak. He touched his thin lips with his hand. The way his fingers caressed his thin lips. He was so handsome that people couldn't close their legs. Yi Qing Luo decisively hooked her arms around the man's neck and pressed her pink lips against his, planting a kiss on his lips. Then, she gazed deeply at him with her big, wet eyes. After being kissed by the girl, the man was satisfied. Xiao Jiu will follow him, he will be fine. Yi Qing Luo bounced and jumped into the man's arms. Her forelimbs were all wrapped around Dmo Xian. She hung all her weight on the man's body. Ah Xian treats me the best. I like Ah Xian the most. The young lady's sweet words were like a ray of sunshine, seeping into Dmo Xian's heart. That pair of bright and mischievous eyes shone into the depths of his eyes at close range. Her heart was filled with tenderness. Everything he did was to make little Luo happy. Lil Luo, was happy. He was satisfied. Let's go, let's hurry and settle Ren Jianming's matter, then. We'll go find trouble with the Ren family. Yi Qing Luo climbed down from his body. Dmo Xian rubbed her little head. Then, he summoned Little Nine. Little Nine brought the two people in the direction that Ren Jianming was currently at. Even with Little Nine's speed, he had still rushed for at least half an hour in midair. It looked even more remote and gloomy, like a patch of green plants that grew naturally and one couldn't tell what it was. No matter how one looked at it, it was extremely strange. Yi Qing Luo looked at the environment below as she ridiculed in her heart, can't that fellow Ren Jianming just stay in the Gu residence properly? He has only been missing for a few days. Is there a need to be so anxious? One person, without any profound energy. And he even ran into such a deep mountain forest. Wasn't he afraid that a magical beast would suddenly appear and swallow him? This should be the place where the person he wanted to save is at. Dmo Xian's head rested lightly on Yi Qing Luo's shoulder as he spoke in a low voice. He closed his eyes. His peerless face was like a painting. When he opened his mouth, his warm breath was still beside her ear. For Ren Jianming, the disappearance is equivalent to the destruction of his hope. Perhaps he thought that his disappearance meant that he refused to save that person. That's why he came here alone. Yi Qing Luo. He's an idiot, right? This was a statement, not a question. Ren Jianming might really be a fool. Haunted her for so long. He didn't even want face anymore. After much effort, she finally agreed. Did he just give up? There must be something wrong with this child's brain. Little Nine stopped in the depths of the forest. Dmo Xian carried Yi Qing Luo down and stood on the ground. As far as the eye could see, everything in front of him was green. The green was strange. Little Nine said that Ren Jianming stopped here. Dmo Xian held Yi Qing Luo's hand as they walked towards the front. Trees after trees flashed past in front of them. Dmo Xian brought her and went around several rounds. All of a sudden, the scene in front of him turned into a huge cave in an instant. Just like when she was in barbaric Blood Bone King's memory space, changing the scenery. Chapter 45-34. Reverse Enchantment. These 4 words suddenly popped out in Yi Qing Luo's mind. She had only seen this enchantment once in Nirvana Realm, at the base camp of the Dark Forces. Old Man Song had explained about the reverse enchantment at that time. It was probably equivalent to, the reverse enchantment would hide the place or thing that it really wanted to hide. And for those who didn't know how to break the array, when they entered the reverse enchantment, they would only see the scene displayed by the reverse enchantment. Earlier, a large patch of lush forest or whatever, were all an illusion created by the reverse enchantment. In the enchantment, the place where she was standing, was actually this huge cave. How did you know how to break this reverse enchantment? Yi Qing Luo's hands hugged Dmo Xian's arm, her eyes filled with worship. Looking at the young lady's mischievous look. The lines on the man's face softened a little, as his eyes oozed out traces of pampering. Since you were trapped in the enchantment, I was helpless. I researched on various ways to break the enchantment. Yi Qing Luo's eyelashes fluttered slightly. Her charming eyes reflected the man's peerless looks. Her eyes were covered with a layer of warmth. He really placed her on the tip of his heart and pampered her. Because of a mistake which caused her to get hurt. So he tried his best to make up for it. To make himself stronger. And to be able to protect her safely. She was really very lucky. Yi Qing Luo circled his neck, as she kissed his lips hard. The young lady's eyes were rippling like water. Touched, gentle, affectionate. A smile flashed past Dmo Xian's eyes. Immediately his large palm clasped the young lady's slender waist tightly, deepening the kiss. The corner of his gaze seemed to be provoking, and also seemed to be warning, as it swept past somewhere not too far away. In the darkness, a figure could be seen faintly, standing at the corner. That person looked at the scene in front of him without blinking. His gaze fell onto that devastatingly beautiful young lady's face. Looking at the young lady's blissful smile. Looking at the young lady's gentle and affectionate gaze. His heart felt as though it was being strangled, as though it was about to suffocate. The words that were in his mouth were swallowed back. Until the man's corner of his gaze swept over. That made his body suddenly stiffened. He quickly turned around and left that angle, as though he was fleeing for his life. It was just like the deepest secret in his heart seemed to have been discovered. That kind of panic. What's that sound? Yi Qing Luo's ears twitched as a small head popped out from the man's body and looked around. Just now, he seemed to have heard light footsteps. Dmo Xian naturally held Yi Qing Luo's hand as he walked towards the direction where that person had left, probably Ren Jianming. Let's go take a look. Yi Qing Luo responded with a "n" and followed behind Dmo Xian. After walking for a while, Yi Qing Luo indeed heard clearer footsteps. In the dark cave, there was a flickering light ahead. A tall figure stood out amidst the light. It seemed to have heard their footsteps. The figure walked even faster. Yi Qing Luo looked for a while and barely recognized the other party, Ren Jianming. That person's footsteps paused, then he suddenly sped up and strode forward. It was that meal. Yi Qing Luo was almost certain that the person in front was Ren Jianming. That child. Was it because she wasn't punctual and threw a tantrum? Yi Qing Luo turned her head to look at Dmo Xian as she said, "I'll go catch that devilish brat. What's the meaning of running away the moment he sees me?" Saying that, she rolled up her sleeves and chased after that person. Hurry up and read the latest updates. Chapter 45-35. Before Dmo Xian could even open his mouth, the girl had already rushed over. He shook his head helplessly and dotingly. Naughty brat, he was a child. He didn't know how he was able to say the words, naughty brat, so calmly. The person in front was running a little slowly. Yi Qing Luo merely took a few steps and had already caught up to that person. She grabbed the man's shoulder and turned him around. Under the dim light, Ren Jianming's expression was ugly, mixed with complicated emotions. The expression in his eyes when he looked at her was also very complicated. After meeting Yi Qing Luo's gaze, Ren Jianming turned his head away. "Why are you running?" Yi Qing Luo pressed his shoulder tightly. Ren Jianming lowered his head and said nothing. Yi Qing Luo directly slapped his forehead. "Speak, why are you running? You don't want to see me?" "No." Ren Jianming opened his mouth, his voice a little hoarse. Yi Qing Luo snorted coldly. "No, then why did you run away when you saw me?" Ren Jianming stammered, unable to utter a single word. Especially when he saw the man walking out from the darkness behind the young girl, his face turned even paler. The man was noble and elegant as he slowly walked over. It was as if a king had descended. It caused people to unconsciously submit to him. He lowered his head again and did not speak again. Yi Qing Luo followed Ren Jianming's gaze and looked behind. After seeing that it was Dmo Xian. Then, he turned his head and looked at Ren Jianming. "Didn't you just agree to help? Did you have to run away when you saw me?" Her gaze went past Ren Jianming and swept behind him, where the light came from. "At that time, I didn't set a time with him, so I didn't know about that person's situation. Don't tell me that I'm late by just a few days, but I'm already too late. No, no. Ren Jiaming immediately said, I don't blame. You didn't blame me for running away so quickly when you saw me? Yi Qing Luo pushed him away and walked towards the light. Is the person you want to save inside? Ren Jiaming leaned to the side. His gaze landed on Dmo Xian again. His pupils constricted. Then, she looked away in a panic. He speedily caught up with Yi Qing Luo's footsteps as his heart trembled in fear. He saw the intimate scene between Yi Qing Luo and Dmo Xian. His heart would ache. Actually, he had discovered his feelings towards Yi Qing Luo a long time ago. It was just very clear. He was unable to stand by Yi Qing Luo's side. The person standing beside her should be someone even more powerful. Therefore, he had been suppressing his feelings. However, the look in Di Zun's eyes just now had obviously seen through all his thoughts. The overlord knew about his feelings for Yi Qing Luo. Ren Jiaming tried hard to calm himself down, putting himself in the position of needing Yi Qing Luo's help to save someone. He knew it was impossible for him to compete with Venerable Sovereign. He had never thought of standing by Yi Qing Luo's side. Yi Qing Luo continued forward. He walked closer to the light. Then, he saw a luminous pearl flickering in and out of existence. After the luminous pearl, it was an ice bed that looked like an ice sculpture. No, it wasn't Wanru. It was because the bed was made of ice. It was also emitting a thin white cold current. On top of that ice bed, an old man with a white beard laid there with his eyes closed, not moving at all. Not knowing why, she felt that the old man's figure was a little familiar. Yi Qing Luo frowned slightly as she walked towards the ice bed. That person's face on the ice bed was clearly reflected in her eyes. Her pupils suddenly expanded. A disbelieving expression flashed past her eyes. Chapter 45-36. The person on the ice bed had a white beard and white hair. He was dressed in a white robe. Even if Yi Qing Luo closed her eyes, she would still be able to recognize that face. Old Man Song. The person lying on the ice bed was Old Man Song. Dmo Xian also walked up, and when he saw the person on the ice bed, he was slightly stunned. He looked at the girl beside him, who was obviously stunned. He stretched out his arms and pulled her into his embrace. You didn't see wrongly, it's him. Dmo Xian's lips curled up slightly as he replied gently. Yi Qing Luo suddenly regained her senses as she hurriedly walked towards the ice bed and squatted down beside it. Ren Jianming walked over from behind, looking at Yi Qing Luo's expression. And Dmo Xian, who was standing by the side. Sensing that something was amiss, he asked, Do you know him? Yi Qing Luo wanted to stretch out her hand and touch the old man's hand. But he paused midway. Her breathing was a little erratic. She slowly raised her head and pursed her lips as she looked at Ren Jianming. Why is he lying here? Was the person on the ice bed Old Man Song's body? The person Ren Jianming asked her to save was Old Man Song. Ren Jianming looked deeply at the old man on the ice bed. He wanted to protect me, so Ren Jianying, protection? Ren Jianying? Yi Qing Luo's expression changed slightly. He subconsciously raised his head and looked at Dmo Xian. Something was not right. If this person was Old Man Song, then the timing didn't match at all. 10,000 years ago, Old Man Song had fallen into a deep slumber within the Azure Dew bracelet, becoming its guardian spirit. Ren Jianying was the person who had just appeared. How could he be lying here because of Ren Jianying? But, if this person wasn't Old Man Song, then how could it be explained that he had the exact same face as Old Man Song? Dmo Xian's large palm landed on the young lady's head as he gently rubbed it and said, This isn't a difficult matter. Don't forget that when the barbaric Blood King was suppressed in the Nirvana realm, he was still in the Heaven realm, mobilizing his own forces. His gaze faintly swept over Old Man Song, who was lying on the ice bed. Perhaps this is Old Man Song's avatar. Doppelganger? Yi Qing Luo was stunned. You can play this way? Then, why has Old Man Song never mentioned it to me? Dmo Xian pondered for a moment, because he himself might not even know. Yi Qing Luo pursed her lips tightly. She lowered her eyes and looked at the azure dew bracelet on her wrist. Her slender, jade-like fingers lightly stroked it. I previously promised Old Man Song that I will help him find his own body, and let him become a new person. Yi Qing Luo's charming eyes flashed a faint radiance. Her gaze again fell on the person on the ice bed. If it's Old Man Song, can I? Yes. Dmo Xian's hands wrapped tightly around her slender waist. He is Old Man Song. If he is able to fuse Old Man Song's spiritual body into his body, he will become a real person. Wait, what are you guys talking about? Ren Jianming was confused as he listened to their conversation. He took a look at Old Man Song and looked at Yi Qing Luo. What do you want to merge with him? What do you mean? Miss Gu, aren't you here to save him? Ren Jianming panicked a little. Yi Qing Luo didn't say a word. Finding Old Man Song's body wasn't as happy as she expected. On the contrary, there was a heavy feeling. She knew the reason why Ren Jianming was panicking. It was the same thing that she was worried about. Because she couldn't be sure whether this Old Man Song in front of her was related to Ren Jianming or the Old Man Song that belonged to her. ***, the Karsic old man Mo was always looking for the right time to write. I tried my best to annoy you. I'll continue to work hard, sob. End of this chapter. Chapter 45-37. For Ren Jianming. Old Man Song was a benefactor to him. It was another kind of existence. It had nothing to do with her azure dew bracelet, therefore, if his body and soul were to fuse together, he would not be able to do so. Would the person after the fusion still be Old Man Song? Split body, no matter how it's split, it's still the same person. Dmo Xian seemed to have seen through Yi Qing Luo's thoughts. He explained in a gentle voice, actually, when I first saw Old Man Song, I felt that his soul wasn't complete. However, Old Man Song's consciousness and mind were very clear, so I didn't think too much about it. Based on the current situation, the Old Man Song in the heaven realm should be a wisp of Old Man Song's spiritual consciousness. The majority of Old Man Song's soul is condensed within the azure dew bracelet. Perhaps because of the azure dew bracelet, it helped Old Man Song consolidate his own consciousness, allowing him to retain a healthy self-awareness even after losing a wisp of spiritual consciousness. When Yi Qing Luo heard Dmo Xian's words, her eyes sunk slightly. Dmo Xian's words were actually very simple. Whether it was Old Man Song in the azure dew bracelet or him on the ice bed, they were all Old Man Song. One was the soul. One is the body. As for why Old Man Song's body could move freely in the heavenly realm, it was because there was a strand of Old Man Song's spiritual consciousness left in this body. But why did that wisp of spiritual awareness appear in the heaven realm, and the reason why it was related to the Ren family, perhaps only Old Man Song himself knew. So, can he be saved? Yi Qing Luo asked. If so, yes. Dmo Xian's deep eyes gazed deeply at her face as his thin lips curled into an extremely shallow arc, and only then can his soul return back into his body. He paused. He glanced in Ren Jianming's direction. Ren Jianming did the right thing. He knew to ask for help. Ren Jianming felt goosebumps all over his body from this sudden look. A chill ran down his spine. He clenched his fingers tightly, suppressing the frightening chill. He took a deep breath and said, "What are the two of you talking about? What exactly is your relationship with him?" Yi Qing Luo looked at Ren Jianming. What did Ren Jianming do to him? Yi Qing Luo's tone was slightly awe-inspiring. He was sure that this old man was Old Man Song. Yi Qing Luo naturally wouldn't ignore it. And she was a very protective person. He had to avenge Old Man Song. Ren Jianming looked at her serious expression and answered subconsciously, "Elder Song is an elder of our Ren family." Elder Tsang saw through eldest sister's ambition and wanted to stop it, which caused eldest sister to retaliate. At that time, I didn't believe that big sister would do something so heartless and extreme just for the sake of the Ren family. But once, when I came out of Elder Tsang's mountain, I was chased. Elder Tsang arrived in time to save me. At that time, Elder Tsang was trying to block the arrow that was shot from afar for me. He fell down and hasn't woken up even now. Ren Jianming's emotions fluctuated as he recalled this memory. His fingers were tightly clenched, as if he was suppressing some sort of emotion. Then, he shut his eyes tightly. That arrow belongs to the Ren family. At that time, I didn't understand. Now I understand. Everything at that time was Big Sister's plan. She was afraid of Elder Tsang's ability, afraid that Elder Tsang's status would affect her to control the Ren family. So she intentionally tried to kill me in Elder Tsang's territory. Chapter 45-38. Ren Jianming gritted his teeth. His eyes were dark and hazy. He knows that as an elder of the Ren family, Elder Tsang will definitely not stand idly by. She used me to lure Elder Tsang out, and then used me to make Elder Tsang lie here, unable to wake up. So, right from the start, Ren Jianming's target was Elder Tsang. Or rather, even if he didn't scheme against Elder Tsang, he could also take the opportunity to create trouble for Ren Jianming. Or rather, he had inadvertently destroyed Ren Jianming. It was enough to make him lose the right to be the successor of the Ren family. No matter what the reason was. As long as one of the two was achieved. To Ren Jianming, it was all good and no harm. Because Ren Jianming schemed against him, so you think he has a way to deal with Ren Jianming? Yi Qing Luo asked. Ren Jianming took a deep look at the ice bed. Yes. Elder Tsang will definitely be able to deal with Ren Jianming. He is an elder of the Ren family. At this point, his voice suddenly became softer. Most importantly, I don't want anything to happen to Elder Tsang. I want him to recover. Elder Tsang was tricked because of him. And he was lying in this place. How could he not feel guilty? However, because of Ren Jianming. However, he didn't dare to openly look for capable people to save Elder Tsang. He could only maintain his image as a hedonistic young master on the surface while secretly searching for a way to save Elder Tsang. Until he met Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo muttered to herself for a moment and replied calmly, I will save him. As long as you're willing. I can agree to any conditions. Ren Jianming clenched his fists tightly as he looked at Yi Qing Luo anxiously. Yi Qing Luo shook her head, there's no need for any conditions or requests, I'm the one who wants to save him. Perhaps it was because Yi Qing Luo's tone was simply too serious. Ren Jianming clenched his fists and asked tentatively, You know Elder Tsang too? What do you mean by what you just said? Does Elder Tsang have a very good relationship with you guys? To me, he is the most important elder. Yi Qing Luo's charming eyes overflowed with radiance, so I will save him. Ren Jianming wanted to ask something, but he closed his mouth in the end. No matter what the relationship between Yi Qing Luo and Old Tsang was. Since Yi Qing Luo had agreed, she would never go back on her word. She would definitely make Elder Tsang open his eyes again, but a little difficult. Yi Qing Luo slowly squatted down beside the ice bed. She held the hand gently. It was bone-chilling. It was extremely hard. Yi Qing Luo's hands were trembling. Miss Gu, you can't touch Elder Tsang. Ren Jianming saw Yi Qing Luo's action and was so shocked that his eyes deepened. This is the 1,000-year frost. Old Tsang is protected by the cold air of the 1,000-year frost. This cold air will hurt you. It doesn't matter. The emotions in Yi Qing Luo's eyes fluctuated strangely. Her heart was beating wildly. She held Old Man Tsang's hand. Although it was cold. But it was truly Old Man Tsang's body. Ren Jianming saw that Dmo Xian had no intention to stop him, so he didn't say anything more. If the cold air really hurt Yiqing Luo, Dmo Xian would probably be the first one to stop Yiqing Luo from touching the ice. He placed all of his thoughts on Elder Tsang. Miss Gu, you said it's a little difficult. What do you mean? His situation is not as simple as you think. Yiqing Luo let go of his hand. The reason why he fainted is not only because of Ren Jianying's schemes. Chapter 45-39. I can only do my best to help him. This is my promise to him. I promised him she would help him find a body that belonged to him and turn him into a true human. The tenderness in Yiqing Luo's eyes gradually dispersed. Instead, there was determination in her eyes. Regarding old man Tsang's situation, Yiqing Luo didn't really understand. Through Dmo Xian's explanation, she roughly understood. As long as he fused old man Tsang's spiritual body with his body, the memories between the two would also merge. Yiqing Luo remembered that old man Tsang had mentioned it before. He wanted to turn old man Tsang back into a true human. He needed to collect all 5 pieces of the Azure Water Divine Artifact. Currently, she only had the Azure Water Ring, the Azure Water Silk Chain, and the Azure Water Pendant. He was still missing the Azure Crystal Pendant and the Azure Water Light Chain. As of now, she was still unable to sense the existence of the other 2 divine artifacts in her hands. Yiqing Luo looked at the person on the ice bed and said word by word, I will definitely remember the Tsang Shui 5-piece set and will definitely find a way to let you stand in front of me in a human form. The Azure Dew bracelet suddenly scorched her hand. It seemed to be old man Tsang's reply. Yiqing Luo's lips curled into a smile as her fingertips covered the Azure Dew bracelet. Just as he was about to ask old man Tsang's spiritual sense if he still had any memories of his body, the man behind her suddenly grabbed her slender waist. His expression became slightly serious. Something has happened in the Gu residence. Yiqing Luo immediately raised her head. What happened? Before I left, I set up an enchantment outside the Bone residence. Dmo Xian held her still icy cold hand. There's a fluctuation in the enchantment. Someone has left the enchantment. Leave? Yiqing Luo's heart thumped. At the critical moment of the heaven realm, if he left the Gu residence so easily, he would be captured and skinned at any moment. There were clues to the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade and the Divine Emperor's Tomb. These 2 points attracted the attention of the various forces. On top of that, Ren Jianying had led the Ren family to take advantage of the situation during the leaderboard. Ren Jianying planned to control the entire heaven realm in a short period of time. Furthermore, Ren Jianming was in the Gu residence. If the people in the Gu residence left the Gu residence, they would definitely be killed. The walls had been gnawed until nothing was left. Let's go. Let's return to the Gu residence first. Thinking of these consequences, Yiqing Luo's expression turned extremely ugly. Ren Jianming, I'll have to trouble you to take care of old man Tsang. Me too. Ren Jianming was just about to speak. But he was interrupted by Yiqing Luo. This place is a very good hiding place. You stay here and guard old man Tsang. Without waiting for Ren Jianming to speak, she took the lead and headed back in the direction they came from. When Yiqing Luo arrived at the Gu residence, the Gu residence was already in a mess. Gu Yun stood at the entrance of the Gu residence and opened her arms. All of you, calm down. Sir Di Zun has specially ordered this servant not to let you leave the Gu residence. There must be a reason for Sir Di Zun. Yan Shao Yi and Gu Zishi were blocked at the door. Their expressions were ugly and dark. One of their hands was on Gu Yun's arm, wanting to push her away. Beside him stood Tong Ziqing and Long Yunzhan, whose expressions were also not very good. He looked around. However, Gue Wu and the others were nowhere to be seen. Chapter 45-40. Yan Shao Yi and Gu Zishi, who were struggling to rush out of the Gu residence's main door, stopped. Since the other party used such a method, then they must have set up an inescapable net, waiting for you to walk right into it. Guyan saw that she had persuaded the both of them and immediately added on. Yan Xiaoyi and Gu Zishi looked at each other. The expressions on their faces were complicated. As though they were forcefully suppressing the surging emotions in their chest, trying their best to calm their own emotions. Yan Xiaoyi's fingers clenched tightly as she punched the air. Then what should we do? Don't tell me we are just going to stand here and wait? Guyan lowered her head in difficulty. I think we should wait for the overlord and eldest young miss to return to the residence. You also said it's an inescapable net. How could cousin Xiao and Ah Xing be those people's match? Gu Zishi was panting heavily as she spoke. She paced back and forth anxiously on the spot. Her face was filled with unconcealable anxiety. It won't happen. Yan Xiaoyi took a deep breath as her voice trembled slightly. She could tell that she was restraining her own emotions. Since they used such a method to intentionally lure Xiao Jin and Huangfu Xing away, then they must have made up their minds to use them as bait to lure Qing Luo out. Yan Xiaoyi wasn't sure if she was convincing herself or convincing Gu Zishi. Before Qing Luo appears, within a short period of time, their lives will absolutely not be in danger. Gu Zishi's eyelashes fluttered as she opened her mouth wanting to say something but swallowed it down as she changed to something else. What you said is right. They will be fine, they won't. But, after the both of them finished saying this sentence. But both of them fell into silence. No matter how they tried to convince themselves, their hearts were still unable to cross that hurdle. They were unable to control themselves not to worry about them. Their lives wouldn't be in danger. But the others? They were such proud people, how could they endure becoming the other party's captives? Just at this moment. What happened? Who has left the Gu residence? A clear voice sounded, as though it was faintly discernible in the air. When that voice rang, the group of people who were squeezing at the entrance with a heavy atmosphere suddenly raised their heads and looked over. A huge-tailed fox descended from the sky. Immediately after, a tall and upright Dmo Xian leapt down from the tailed fox's back. He leaned forward and hugged the other person on the fox's back. The girl's flowing red dress was like a flowing fire, pouring down in torrents. When he saw that person, everyone's eyes suddenly lit up. Qing Luo. Yan Xiaoyi seemed as though she had grabbed onto a life-saving straw as she dashed forward towards Yi Qing Luo. Jin Zihe. He has left the Gu residence. Her words were concise and comprehensive, as she swiftly told Yi Qing Luo about the matter. It was probably, when the Ren family was unreasonable and tyrannical, many families and forces chose to submit to him. Among them was the Huangfu family. Huangfu family's target had always been Yi Qing Luo. As a result, the Huangfu clan came to the Gu residence under the orders of the Huangfu clan. He didn't know what method the Huangfu clan had used. He had actually tricked those two cousins out of the Gu residence. When Xiao Jin and Huangfu Sheng were in the Bone residence, the people from the outside world couldn't do anything to them. But, they left the Gu residence. How would the Huangfu clan's people possibly let them off? The more she recalled, Yan Xiaoyi's anxiety grew even more. Dear, this chapter has ended, I wish you a happy reading. Big smiley face. Chapter 45-41. She held Yi Qing Luo's hand as her palms were filled with cold sweat. Qing Luo, Huangfu family. Must be setting a trap for us. Jin Zi will be fine, he will be fine, right? I know. Yi Qing Luo squinted her eyes slightly as her long and narrow pupils reflected a piercingly cold glint. Huangfu family's motive is probably not just to lure me into their trap. That Ren Jianying. It's time to meet her. It had always been her who schemed against others. How could others scheme against her? As well as the brothers whom she cared about. Since the other party was trying all ways and means to lure her out, then she would grant them their wish. Yi Qing Luo's lips curled into a smile. Swinging into a cold smile. Yan Xiaoyi wanted to persuade her. But when her gaze landed on Dmo Xian, she swallowed her words back. Right. The Overlord was here. The Overlord would protect Yiqing Luo well. Huangfu family. In the huge courtyard, there was a rain of blood and a foul wind. Sand and pebbles flew as trees were uprooted, turning into a pile of ruins. And in that flying pebbles hurricane. Faintly, a few figures could be seen. Qiao Jin and Huangfu Sheng stood in the middle of the ruins. Their long robes fluttered along with the hurricane. Endless profound waves were released from both of them. It surged like the rolling waves of the ocean. A murderous aura filled the entire space. And the surroundings of the courtyard were surrounded by hundreds of guards. There were also dozens of secret guards hidden in the dark, surrounding them tightly. In front of the two of them, an insolent mocking voice came, "You two, your words are pretty. You said you weren't interested in the Huangfu family, but the minute you heard that Huangfu family was re-electing for the position of the family head, you immediately rushed back. Your ambition has been exposed." The smoke dispersed, revealing Huangfu Dongyu's face. On both sides of him stood the third brother Huangfu Qi Fei and the dying Huangfu Fengyan. It was the brother and sister trio again. Qiao Jin's ordinary face had an extremely solemn expression. After hearing Huangfu Dongyu's words, a sliver of disdain surfaced in his eyes. He couldn't even be bothered with Huangfu Dongyu. "We're not here to run for the position of patriarch." Huangfu Sheng clenched his fists, unable to maintain his composure. "I want to find grandfather." "What right does a bastard have to call me grandfather?" Huangfu Fengyan revealed a sinister expression, a shameless mother giving birth to a shameless son. Is he even fit to appear in the Huangfu clan? Living under the same roof and breathing the same sky with you, I even feel disgusted by the air. The three Huangfu siblings couldn't understand this at all. Why did Grandpa have to be so biased towards a young child? Any one of them would be hundreds of times stronger than that bastard. But grandfather would never be able to see them. However, not anymore. The Huangfu clan now belonged to them. They could arrange it however they wanted. He could change the rules however he wanted. Swish, a sharp and cold gaze ruthlessly stared at Huangfu Fengyan. Huangfu Sheng's eyes were filled with murderous intent. His tightly clenched fingers made cracking sounds. Qiao Jin's hand pressed on Huangfu Sheng's arm. "Don't be angry. She deliberately provoked your anger so that you would take the initiative to make a move." His expression was calm, and his ordinary face exuded a sense of nobility and majesty. When he looked at Huangfu Fengyan, he easily suppressed all of Huangfu Fengyan's voice. Chapter 45-42. Qiao Jin clearly did not do anything. But his aura had an aura that could suppress everything. Huangfu Sheng's muscles were all tensed up, and there was an irrepressible anger in his emotions. But, after looking down at the hand on his arm, he still suppressed his anger. Huangfu Fengyan knew what his bottom line was. She was also very clear about what words could provoke his most direct anger. Huangfu Fengyan mentioned his mother at this time. It was obviously intentional. If he really made a move, she would fall into the opponent's trap. Huangfu Fengyan was frightened by Huangfu Sheng's gaze. Her face instantly turned pale. But, she forced herself to show a provocative expression. But, the enraged Huangfu Sheng only looked at her with an extremely vicious gaze, and did not have the intention to make a move. Huangfu Fengyan did not achieve her goal, and was even stared at by Huangfu Sheng's vicious gaze. There was an inexplicable feeling of strangeness. She looked at the side, at the gentle and elegant Huangfu Qifei, and her eyes were slightly in a mess. She took a deep breath, then looked at Huangfu Sheng and continued, "Don't make it sound so nice. At the end of the day, you just want to compete for the position of the head of the Huangfu family. But let me tell you, you are a bastard, a wild beast that has long been removed from the family tree. Both of you have no right to compete. Who cares about the competition for the position of the head of the family? I will only say it once, hand over the old man. What you want to do in the future has nothing to do with us. Xiao Jin impatiently interrupted her. Although grandfather is no longer the head of the Huangfu family, his authority is still there. Now that the selection for the position of head of the family is imminent, grandfather naturally has to uphold justice in the Huangfu family. Huangfu Fengyan sneered and said, "You say that you want to see grandfather, but you just want to make use of grandfather's fondness for you to gain his support." Xiao Jin did not even bother to look at her, but stared directly at Huangfu Dongyu and said, "Tell me directly, you specially made use of the old man to lure us here. What is your motive?" Huangfu Dongyu placed his hands behind his back and sneered, naturally. "I want you to never be able to return to the Huangfu clan." There was an obvious murderous intent in his eyes. "Both of you are incompatible with the Huangfu family. Both of you don't have the right to stand in the Huangfu family. The only way to prevent you from ever returning to the Huangfu clan is..." Huangfu Dongyu grinned, revealing a treacherous sneer as he said word by word, "Both of you, die." As soon as he finished speaking, a slim and graceful figure walked out from behind the two of them. The man was dressed in black, and his black hair was tied into a simple bun, revealing his exquisite face. That person had an outstanding temperament, and his every movement was filled with nobility. Between her eyebrows, there was the beauty of a woman, as well as the sharpness of a person in a superior position. When Huangfu Xing saw who it was, he cautiously moved closer to Xiao Jin. "Ren Jianying." "Yes." The person who came was the current head of the Ren family. Ren Jianying. Ren Jianying's posture was noble and arrogant. She raised her chin slightly, revealing her fair neck. Her red lips curled slightly. "I have no choice. First Mistress Gu refused to leave the Gu residence. If I want to see her, I can only use this method." Although Ren Jianying was smiling. But under that smile, there was a huge turbulence. End of this chapter. Chapter 45-43. She raised her finger. She didn't waste any words. She directly made her move. Xiao Jin vaguely saw the extremely faint black aura that Ren Jianying swept away when she made her move. It was a little strange. When he looked again and again, he didn't see anything. The next moment, Ren Jianying's attack had already rushed in front of him. As expected of the person who crippled Ren Jianming and became the new head of the Ren family with her own strength. When she made her move, there was no hesitation at all. Xiao Jin and Huangfu Xing didn't even have time to react. They quickly raised their hands to counterattack. The two sides were fighting. He didn't know if it was Xiao Jin's illusion. Every time Ren Jianying made her move, Xiao Jin could vaguely see a wisp of extremely faint black yin qi lingering around Ren Jianying. Bang! There was a loud explosion. A figure was sent flying by the mysterious wave and fell heavily to the ground. Then, there was the sound of weapons colliding. Huangfu Sheng. Xiao Jin wanted to catch Huangfu Sheng who was flying out. But he didn't have time to move. Ren Jianying had already attacked from the other side. As soon as she got close, Xiao Jin could almost clearly see the black aura seeping out of Ren Jianying's eyes. That kind of black aura made one's heart palpitate with fear. His heart skipped a beat. The expression on his face also changed slightly. Oh no! This black aura, it was the evil aura of the Dark Palace. Ren Jianying. Ren family, Dark Palace, no wonder, Ren Jianying could so smoothly seize the position of the head of the Ren family, and also so smoothly split the world with the imperial family in the Heaven Realm. With the help of the Dark Palace. It probably wouldn't take long. The imperial family would have to lower their heads to Ren Jianying. This Ren Jianying really couldn't be underestimated. Ah! Huangfu Xing suddenly let out a miserable scream. Xiao Jin's gaze immediately looked over. He saw that Huangfu Xing's face was pale, his hands forcefully blocking in front of his chest. An obvious black aura suddenly penetrated his body. Blood gushed out in an instant. Xiao Jin lifted his foot, wanting to rush over. However, the woman's soft laughter rang in their ears. I'm really sorry. You too, be obedient and you won't have to suffer so much. This voice was very close. Xiao Jin suddenly raised his head. He met Ren Jianying's sharp and beautiful eyes. She curled her lips at him and smiled sweetly. However, there was a bloodthirsty sneer in his eyes. Xiao Jin quickly retreated. She was actually this powerful? To actually be able to use the mysterious Yin energy of Dark Ghost Palace properly. His movements were a step too slow. The power that erupted from Ren Jianying shook the surrounding air. Suddenly, he felt as if something was squeezing his chest. The next moment, blood flowed out from Xiao Jin's mouth. His body also staggered a little. Don't worry, I'll be gentle. Besides, I don't want your lives. Ren Jianying was still smiling faintly. What I want is just to use the two of you to trick Miss Gu to come over. Stop struggling. None of you will be able to escape. The smile at the corner of Ren Jianying's mouth grew wider. She walked in the direction of Xiao Jin and Huangfu Sheng. Every step she took, the black aura that lingered around her body became stronger. It carried a cold, killing intent. At this moment, a cold and melodious voice rang out leisurely. I didn't expect that I would have such a big face for Miss Ren to spend so much effort to trick me. Chapter 45-44. That voice seemed to carry a smile. But it was filled with extreme chilliness. Every word and sentence could directly strike into one's heart. I'm also very curious, is it all of us who can't escape, or eldest Miss Ren? Can't escape? The low laughter turned colder and colder. Why not, let's give it a try. When Ren Jianying heard this voice, her expression instantly changed. But very quickly, a smile surfaced on her face. She stopped in her tracks, as she looked towards the direction of the voice. She saw the horizon, from far to near, a huge nine-tailed fox, descending from the sky. A fiery figure leapt down from the back of the nine-tailed fox. Devastatingly beautiful, like a dream or fantasy. Eldest Miss Gu. On seeing the person, Ren Jianying's expression changed several times. She restrained the majestic profound waves, as she smiled at Yi Qing Luo. It's really difficult to meet you. Yi Qing Luo slowly walked towards her. Her footsteps were neither fast nor slow. The expression on her face was calm and indifferent, without much fluctuation of emotions. Eldest Miss Ren has put in so much effort, just to meet me. It shows that eldest Miss Ren absolutely has true love for me. Yi Qing Luo replied with a smile. Her long and narrow eyes rose, but there wasn't any warmth in her eyes. She stopped in front of Ren Jianying. The two of them exchanged glances. Both of them were grinning. In the dark, the undercurrent was surging. If I don't come, wouldn't I disappoint eldest Miss Ren? Yi Qing Luo said. Ren Jianying laughed lightly. Actually, we have the same goal, why not make a deal? Yi Qing Luo raised her brows. Oh? Ren Jianying, I want Ren Jianming, and you want old Master Huangfu. How about we exchange people? Patriarch Ren. Huangfu Fengyan's expression changed, as she cried out involuntarily, grandfather cannot be handed over to them. Originally, she thought that this was a sentence that touched the heaven and earth. But immediately following that, the second half of Huangfu Fengyan's sentence came out from her mouth. Huangfu family is still waiting for grandfather's words. If we let grandfather call for them now, there's a possibility that grandfather will find the next successor from those two bastards. After all, there was Huangfu Jin. In the current Huangfu family, the only one who had golden pupils and was recognized by the ancestor as the successor. Whether it was the old man or the elders of the Huangfu family, they would probably choose to support Huangfu Jin because of his appearance. Most people with absolute power and strength would only be loyal to their family. That's your family's business. It has nothing to do with me. Ren Jianying glanced at him indifferently, her eyes filled with disdain and mockery. Huangfu Fengyan was both angry and annoyed. She clenched her fists and said, "Didn't you say that you wanted to cooperate with the Huangfu clan? You can't just care about your own interests and ignore us." Feng Yan. Huangfu Qifei's elegant brows furrowed as he reached out to grab Huangfu Fengyan's arm, signaling her to shut up. Ren Jinying swept her gaze in the direction of the Huangfu clan. His expression was extremely arrogant. Cooperation has always been driven by interests. Why can't I just care about my own interests? Ren Jinying rolled her eyes at her, as if mocking her 5 fingers and stupidity. Following that, his attention returned back to Yiqing Luo. "What do you think of this suggestion of mine?" "I feel that there's no need." Yiqing Luo smiled as she opened her mouth. His footsteps were getting closer and closer to Ren Jinying, until he stood in front of Ren Jinying. End of this chapter. Chapter 45-45. Yiqing Luo leaned forward slightly as she got closer to Ren Jinying. She leaned close to Ren Jinying's ear. She laughed softly. This distance was extremely close. So close that Yiqing Luo could clearly feel that when she got closer, Ren Jinying's body had turned stiff. Even his breathing had become a lot more hurried and messy. Yiqing Luo's slender brows rose slightly as her pink lips curled into a smile which didn't look like a smile. "Eldest young Miss Ren seems very anxious." Her words had just ended. Ren Jinying hurriedly took a step back. Her breathing and emotions were obviously even more messed up. Yiqing Luo took another step closer as she maintained the distance between her and Ren Jinying as she suppressed her voice. "Ren Jianying is the person I want to protect now. If I give him to you just because you say so, wouldn't I lose my face?" The young lady's tone and voice was obviously joking. Ren Jinying was just about to open her mouth. Suddenly, she felt a chill on her neck. A ray of light flashed past her eyes. Ren Jinying lowered her eyes and saw a flame feather fan pressed against her neck. The handle of the fan had a dagger's length sharp blade as it stuck close to her skin. Ren Jinying's body turned even more stiff as even her voice had a slight change. "What do you want to do?" "To catch the bandits, first catch the ringleader." Yiqing Luo smiled sweetly as her voice was clear and melodious, totally not looking like she was using a dagger to press against someone's neck. Ren Jinying's fingers clenched tightly as she suppressed the panic in her heart to keep herself calm. It had been a long time. A long time since she had lost her composure like this. She shouldn't be like this. No matter what happened, she would absolutely be able to deal with it calmly. Ren Jinying shut her eyes tightly as her voice had already calmed down. "Eldest young Miss Gu, even if you capture me, it's actually not of much use. You've seen it for yourself, the 3 Huangfu siblings have deep enmity towards me. Even if it's what I say, they won't listen to it." The meaning behind her words. Even if they captured her, the 3 Huangfu siblings would also take action. "Oh." Yiqing Luo casually replied with an "oh" word and innocently blinked her eyes. "I don't intend to capture you to negotiate terms with them." She paused for a moment, and the corners of her mouth curled up into an extremely shallow arc. He was extremely evil. Her tone and expression seemed to be mocking the Huangfu clan. She didn't put them in her eyes at all. That kind of ostentatious confidence made Ren Jinying feel uneasy. As expected. In the next instant, the girl moved even closer. Even the sharp blade on her neck was pressed a little closer to the skin on her neck. "Call the person behind you over, let's have a face-to-face chat for a while." Yiqing Luo raised her brows at her. Ren Jinying's expression froze. "What do you mean?" "I don't understand what you're talking about. There are no outsiders here, so there's no need to pretend." Yiqing Luo tilted her head as she beamed. "The person behind you has schemed against me for such a long time, still not intending to reveal his true face?" Ren Jinying's eyelashes fluttered. "Why are you asking this?" "I want to kill the person behind you." Yiqing Luo smiled. Ren Jinying, pausing for a moment, she shook her head. "I don't have any person behind me." Everything was arranged by me alone. The number of times I've crossed hands with the Palace of Darkness is even more than the amount of salt you've eaten. Do you think I can't tell that your body has already been contaminated by the evil Yin Qi? Yi Qing Luo sneered. Do you think I can't tell that the reason why you're able to control the entire heaven realm in such a short period of time is because the Palace of Darkness made use of the evil Yin Qi to raise your profound grade, and used a forbidden curse to enhance you, which is why you could be so successful. Chapter 45-46. Yi Qing Luo's slender fingers lightly tapped on the sharp blade. Looking at the blood flowing out from the lady's neck, her lips curled. Eldest young Miss Ren, aren't you afraid that after you've lost your value, secluded darkness palace will directly swallow up everything that you've worked so hard for? Ren Jianying's pupils constricted. Eldest young Miss Gu also knows how to sow discord? Whether it's to sow discord or not, you know very well in your heart. Yi Qing Luo shrugged. Anyway, the person who loses everything by then isn't me. Ren Jianying remained silent for a moment as her expression turned ugly. What do you mean? Yi Qing Luo's long and narrow eyes curved, as her lips curled into a teasing arc. She slowly leaned closer to Ren Jianying. Her voice seemed to be bewitching, as it was suppressed to an extremely low tone. After all, secluded darkness palace's existence has already exceeded the boundary of your prediction, isn't it? Ren Jianying's body suddenly stiffened, as her eyes widened, staring at Yi Qing Luo in disbelief. Her eyes revealed astonishment and astonishment. Between her eyes, there were some unnecessary emotions, as the undercurrents were surging. You. Her lips trembled slightly, as she wanted to open her mouth, but didn't know how to ask. In her eyes, there was an obvious hesitation. There's still a lot of things that I know. Yi Qing Luo smiled as she patted her shoulder. If I didn't guess wrongly, I should also exceed the boundary of your prediction, that category. Plus, Ren Jianming chose me. So, you panicked, targeting the Gu residence several times, scheming against me. Trying to get rid of this unknown factor, right? Following Yi Qing Luo's words, each and every word was spat out from her mouth. Ren Jianying's face was deathly pale. That was the panic after her thoughts were exposed. That was the panic after a secret which had been hidden for many years was discovered. Yi Qing Luo had been paying attention to her expression. She was almost certain that right from the start, her guess was right. She laughed lightly, as her gaze was cold and piercing. Unfortunately, this unknown factor. You can't get rid of it. Ren Jianying suddenly raised her hand, as she pressed on Yi Qing Luo's wrist which was holding the glower flame fan. She used a lot of strength. Yi Qing Luo smiled as she stared into her eyes and said word by word, in your past life, you failed because of your cowardice, and in this life, you will repeat the same mistake because of your ambition. How did you? Ren Jianying pursed her lips tightly. Even her eyes were a little scarlet. Indistinctly, a wisp of black mysterious Yin Qi seeped out. Before Yi Qing Luo said it out, she was still hoping for a fluke. Perhaps Yi Qing Luo's words which had a hidden meaning was just to trick her. But, now, she knew. Yi Qing Luo really knew about her hidden secret. She thought that it was impossible for anyone in the world to know the secret. But Yi Qing Luo knew. Her secret had been found out by someone. Miss Gu, if you are smart enough, you should know what to do. The smile on Yi Qing Luo's lips deepened. Scram. Tell the person behind you, if he wants something, he can come and get it himself. After hiding for so long, it's time for him to see the light of day, she finished speaking. He moved his wrist slightly. A wave of profound energy rippled. She pushed Ren Jianying away. Ren Jianying staggered as she fell onto the ground. She had not regained her senses as she sat on the ground in a daze. Her eyes were filled with shock as she looked at Yi Qing Luo in panic. In her eyes, there were turbulent waves. Chapter 45-47. Yiqing Luo turned around and walked towards Xiao Jin and Huangfu Sheng's direction. She put her hands behind her back and walked slowly. The expression on his face was extremely calm. "Let's go." She spoke to the two. Xiao Jin took a look at Ren Jianying, who had fallen onto the ground, and looked at Yiqing Luo. "Just like this? What else do you intend to do?" Yiqing Luo rolled her eyes at him. "Kill Ren Jianying?" Xiao Jin shrugged his shoulders. "You can decide. I don't care." Yiqing Luo walked straight ahead as she said, "Let Ren Jianying pass the message. An ambitious person like her, over at the secluded palace, will die sooner or later. Yushi Palace wouldn't let anyone with ulterior motives exist." Ren Jianying was obviously not a woman who would submit willingly. Now, the two sides were cooperating happily. That was because both sides could make use of each other. Ren Jianying, keeping him by her side, was like keeping a ticking time bomb. The people from the Palace of Darkness would naturally not let Ren Jianying go. There was no need for her to kill Ren Jianying. After all, she was also Ren Jianming's sister. After all, Ren Jianming had taken care of old man Song's body for such a long time. Even if he didn't want to give face to the monk, he still had to give face to the Buddha. So, he would give Ren Jianying's life to the Palace of Darkness. Huangfu Sheng lowered his eyes in guilt. "I'm sorry. I acted on my own and made you come all the way here. I understand." Yiqing Luo waved her hand. "Those who are able to cooperate with the Palace of Darkness are jackals of the same tribe. The thing that the Palace of Darkness likes to play with the most is the human heart. The only person who can make you leave the Gu residence despite knowing that the situation is dangerous is Old Master Huangfu. In the entire Huangfu clan, these two cousins only cared about Huangfu Jintian the most. Something that could elicit a reaction from both of them. It could only be Huangfu Jintian." Huangfu Sheng looked in Xiao Jin's direction and hesitated for a moment before saying, "Xiao Jin seems to be, also, because of his mother." "Mother?" Yiqing Luo looked at Xiao Jin. Yiqing Luo had never asked about the relationship between Xiao Jin and the Huangfu family. She had never heard Xiao Jin mention anything about his mother. The Huangfu family didn't just use old Master Huangfu as a bargaining chip, and even dragged Xiao Jin's mother. Looks like this matter was a little complicated. Yiqing Luo walked to Xiao Jin's side and placed her hand on Xiao Jin's shoulder. "Tell me, what's your plan now?" Yiqing Luo's voice wasn't considered soft. Not far away, the three Huangfu brothers had ugly expressions on their faces. They looked at each other, then at Ren Jianying in unison. The reason why they were here was because of the god of war. It was all because he believed Ren Jianying's words. They were relying on Ren Jianying. But now, Ren Jianying, his face was ashen and pale. His eyes stared unblinkingly at Yiqing Luo. It was as if he had suffered an extremely severe shock. Earlier, Ren Jianying was easily subdued by Yiqing Luo. Even Ren Jianying wasn't Yiqing Luo's opponent. Wouldn't that be? The expressions of the three instantly turned extremely ugly as they swiftly turned their gazes towards Xiao Jin. Yiqing Luo was asking Xiao Jin for his opinion. As long as Xiao Jin didn't pursue the matter, Yiqing Luo would definitely not make a move. But, Xiao Jin. Let them beg for mercy from Xiao Jin. How could they do it? For them. Xiao Jin was a child born from a lowly servant. What rights did he have to become their younger brother? And what rights did he have to become the future successor of the Huangfu family? Chapter 45-48. A person whom he totally disdained. Now, he actually wanted them to beg for mercy? Even if their bodies were icy cold, they could clearly feel the murderous aura raging around them. They were unable to convince themselves to open their mouths. On the other side, Xiao Jin glanced sideways as he looked at the devastatingly beautiful face which was just inches away from him. The young lady's hand was casually placed on his shoulder. The corners of her lips were curled into a teasing arc. Apparently, she had intentionally raised her volume when she asked that question earlier, intentionally stirring up panic in the Huangfu family. Xiao Jin merely shot a glance and took a step back, widening the distance between him and Yiqing Luo. He raised his hand and patted his own shoulder as his deep eyes looked towards the horizon, at that huge nine-tailed fox who was standing in the sky. I still want to live a little longer, just say what you want, don't touch me. At the instance when Yiqing Luo's arm rested on his shoulder, Xiao Jin felt that his back was about to be pierced into a hornet's nest by some kind of emotion. The overlord was still by the side. Did Yiqing Luo want him to die? Yiqing Luo smiled as she waved her hand. At most he would use his eyes to stare at you, but he wouldn't dare to really do anything to you. Xiao Jin expressed that with just this glare. He could already feel death waving at him. All right? The two of them were still chatting as though there was no one else around. This was simply belittling the surrounding group of people into dregs. The three Huangfu siblings' expressions turned uglier by the minute. Finally unable to tolerate it any longer, Huangfu Fengyan's fingers clenched tightly as she stared at Yiqing Luo with a venomous gaze. Huangfu Jin, if you touch us, you should know the consequences. Xiao Jin and Yiqing Luo were talking. Their voices suddenly stopped. Their gazes turned towards Huangfu Fengyan. His ordinary face, under the piercingly cold eyes, actually appeared a bit strange and treacherous. Huangfu Fengyan was so shocked that her face turned pale, but she still forced herself to continue speaking. We can't touch old master, but we can still touch your mother. If you don't persuade Yiqing Luo. If anything happens to us, we will return it to your mother 100 times. You can try. Let's see how long the old man can protect your mother. As Huangfu Fengyan spat out the words one by one, the crowd was stunned. The air around Xiao Jin seemed to have condensed into frost. The emotions in the depths of his eyes were dark. Like a whirlpool, it was as if it wanted to devour everything. This was the first time Yiqing Luo saw Xiao Jin's emotions fluctuating so much. What are you staring at? Huangfu Jin, you are an inauspicious person, you are a bastard. You. Pa. Suddenly, a clear and resounding slap resounded. The sound of the slap was so crisp that it almost echoed throughout the entire space. Huangfu Fengyan, your mouth is so dirty. Do you want me to help you wash it? A woman wearing a blue dress appeared. The woman held a crescent-shaped scythe that shone with black light. Xiao Yi, when Xiao Jin saw the person who had arrived, the icy cold expression on his face instantly dissipated. The people who came were Yan Xiao Yi and Gu Zishi, who had followed behind Yiqing Luo and finally managed to catch up. Yan Xiao Yi strode over to Xiao Jin's side, blocking him behind her. Following that, she stabbed the black scythe into the ground as she sneered at Huang Fengyan. If you dare to scold one more time, I'll cut off your tongue in minutes. That slap made half of Huang Fengyan's ears buzz. The scorching pain made her unable to open her mouth to speak. The moment she moved, it affected her muscles. It was so painful that it tore her heart apart. Chapter 45-49. Xiao Jin wrapped his arms around Yan Xiaoyi's waist. He placed his head on her shoulder. A light laugh came out from his lips. That laughter was filled with obvious joy. The coldness in his body had already faded. The expression on his face had also returned to his usual look. Now he had Xiao Yi. He was no longer alone. The lonely days that he had been through, it would not appear again. Feeling the man's aura, it gradually calmed down. Yan Xiao Yi patted the back of his hand and pacified him. Be good, I'm here. Whoever dares to insult you and your mother, I'll swing my sickle and they will definitely die. She patted Xiao Jin's hand. Then she raised her head and looked towards the direction of the three Huangfu siblings, as one of the four heavenly families. Now that the Ren family has power in the heaven realm, your Huangfu family has to rely on the powerhouses who were once on equal footing to survive. No wonder you're not able to become the next successor of the Huangfu family. This sentence made the three Huangfu siblings' faces turn gloomy. Trying to use Ah Jin's mother to threaten Ah Jin? Go ahead and try. As long as you dare to touch Ah Jin's mother, we will absolutely kill you directly. Yan Xiaoyi's eyes were filled with coldness. You! Huangfu Dongyu clenched his teeth but had no way to refute her words. Xiao Jin's mother was their last bargaining chip. They indeed didn't dare to move. Trying to sow discord? By the side, Ren Jianying, who had regained her composure, opened her mouth slowly. The current her was no longer as flustered as before when her secret was exposed by Yiqing Luo. If one looked closely, they would be able to see a complacent smile on her brows. Complacent? Yiqing Luo's brows rose slightly. She had been paying attention to Ren Jianying's situation. Ren Jianying had been immersed in the fear of her secret being exposed. Her emotions had been unable to calm down. But, at that moment earlier, she seemed to have gained some confidence. Yiqing Luo's brows twitched as she suddenly thought of something and immediately opened her mouth. Go. Just as she finished her words, a voice rang out. All of a sudden, the entire ground caved in. Yiqing Luo's feet were in the air as she swiftly fell downwards. Gravel flew everywhere as the mountains collapsed and the ground cracked. The next moment, her waist tightened. Her body was pulled into a warm embrace. Yiqing Luo hooked her arm around his neck. The man picked her up by the waist, and with a sudden leap, he landed on the ground. Ah Xian. Yiqing Luo's little head popped out from his arms. Where is this place? Dmo Xian put her down on the ground, but his other hand was still hugging her waist tightly. Array. Another formation. Yiqing Luo surveyed the surroundings. Earlier when I saw Ren Jianying's sudden confident look, I already guessed it. The palace of gloomy darkness had countless forbidden spells and spells. This was especially true for forbidden formations that defied the will of the heavens. Since Ren Jianying was working with the palace of gloomy darkness, then, he used all sorts of methods to trick Huangfu Sheng and Xiao Jin out of the Gu residence. He had already achieved his goal of luring her here. How could he not have prepared a foolproof plan? Moreover, this time, it was definitely not a small fight. Ren Jianying controlled the heavenly realm, which meant that, the heavenly realm was already in the hands of the Dark Palace. The Palace of Gloomy Darkness had revealed her secret to the public. Apparently, they were anxious to get something from her. The mastermind behind the Palace of Gloomy Darkness finally couldn't take it anymore. Now, the place they were in was a stretch of empty space. It was a patch of gray, and they couldn't see the scene in front of them clearly. Chapter 45-50. Is this an illusion? Yiqing Luo couldn't see the surroundings clearly, so she retracted her vision and raised her head to look at Dmo Xian. If this is an illusion, then are you real or fake? Dmo Xian's wrist, which was locked on her waist, suddenly tightened. He pressed her petite body firmly into his arms. Following that, he lowered his head and placed it on her shoulder. His thin lips were very close to her earlobe. His warm breath splashed onto the young lady's skin. Lil Luo, isn't always able to easily differentiate whether I'm real or fake. So now Lil Luo, tell me, am I real or fake? The man's low and hoarse voice was very magnetic and alluring. As he spoke, he gave out a low and light laugh. Yiqing Luo's petite body trembled slightly. There was a scorching feeling on the skin on her neck. She rolled her eyes at the man as she raised her hand to block the man's mouth, which was on her neck, and pushed his head away. Fake, fake. My Ah Xian is not this kind of beast who can be aroused anytime and anywhere. She still didn't know what kind of array this was. He was just messing around there. What if this illusion was something? The outside world could see it clearly. Wouldn't it be too embarrassing? Looks like Lil Luo still doesn't understand me well enough. Dmo Xian's thin lips rose slightly as his face was handsome and elegant. His hand slid upwards and held onto Yiqing Luo's little hand, which was nudging his head. when facing Lil Luo, I'm a beast. Yi Qing Luo. She admitted defeat. She slapped away Dmo Xian's messing around hand. Yi Qing Luo walked forward, and as she walked, she looked around. Stop fooling around, let's find out what this place is first. Everyone should be scattered in different parts of the array, so we have to find everyone first to ascertain everyone's safety. Dmo Xian's hands hugged Yi Qing Luo's slender waist tightly from behind. Following that, he placed his head on her slender back. He sighed softly, I feel that I haven't been alone with you for a long time, I'm really not happy. Yi Qing Luo halted her footsteps as she held onto the man's large palm and turned around. She raised her head, and her glistening eyes met Dmo Xian's eyes. Recently, there are indeed a lot of things. She knew what Dmo Xian was worried about. Ever since they arrived in the Earth domain, she had always been separated from Dmo Xian. It wasn't easy for them to meet. Then, they immediately separated due to other matters. Dmo Xian missed him. How could she not miss him as well? Yi Qing Luo's arms encircled the man's waist and her voice softened. Everything will be settled soon, from now on. We will be together every day and never be separated again. Yi Qing Luo buried her head in the man's arms. She did not notice that Dmo Xian's lips had slightly curled upwards because of her gentle words. Also, his pair of peach blossom eyes that were like a pool of spring water seemed to be faintly discernible as he glanced at a certain place in the sky. It seemed to be a provocation. It also seemed to be a warning. Then, his thin lips curled up again. He buried his head in the young girl's neck. I feel that this time is still very far away. How will Lil Luo comfort my lonely heart? It was rare to see her man acting coquettishly. Yi Qing Luo's brows were overflowing with tenderness. She laughed softly. Her hands cupped the man's face as she slowly placed her pink lips on his and planted a kiss on his lips. All right, I'll make it up to you after we return, be good. Dmo Xian's large palm locked onto Yi Qing Luo as he deepened the kiss. His peach blossom eyes were filled with smiles. End of this chapter. Chapter 45-51. Looking at the man's complacent look, Yi Qing Luo's expression turned even more gentle and tender. This man was addicted to acting coquettishly. Yi Qing Luo pinched his face. All right, let's go find out how to leave this godforsaken place. This time, Dmo Xian didn't pull her along to display his affection. Instead, he held her little hand and followed behind her obediently. What's going on? Xiao Yi. Hold on tight. Zishi, don't move. The earth quaked and the mountains shook as the ground kept on collapsing. Yan Xiao Yi and the rest frantically found a safe place as they stabilized themselves. About the time it took for an incense stick to burn. Only then did the shaking of the earth and mountains slowly stop. Xiao Jin held the dagger which was stabbed into the stone wall while the other hand held onto Yan Xiao Yi. The both of them were hanging on the edge of the cliff. Below them, because of the collapse earlier, had turned into a bottomless abyss. And on the other side of the cliff, Gu Zishi and Huangfu Sheng were hugging each other tightly. The place where the both of them were standing had cracked stone walls, as though a slight movement would cause them to fall. The surroundings had turned into a pile of ruins because of the earlier tremors. The place where the four of them were, it was extremely dangerous. There was a possibility that a slight movement would cause the next wave of collapse. Then it would cause the next wave of collapse. Yan Xiao Yi maintained the calmness of her breathing as her eyes surveyed the surroundings. Finally, her gaze landed on a group of people on another mountain not too far away. Huangfu family and Ren Jianying. Ren Jianying stood right at the front as her face was filled with an unconcealable cold smirk. Yan Xiao Yi silently cursed him for being sinister. She immediately raised her head and looked at Xiao Jin. How is it, can you still hold on? Xiao Jin replied, no problem, let's go up first. Emin, hold on tight, I'll do it. Yan Xiaoyi's slender hand moved as the black sickle in her hand suddenly swung upwards. The black sickle blade swept past as a blue light floated. Only to see the black sickle blade piercing into the highest rock wall. The gravel rolled down with a crashing sound. As though it was about to collapse for the second time because of the black sickle blade's collision. The both of their bodies started to fall bit by bit. Crack. There was a slight noise. It seemed like the black scythe blade was stuck somewhere on the rock wall. The moment Xiao Jin's dagger, which was supporting the weight of two people, lost its strength due to the crack in the rock wall. Both of their bodies were entangled by a blue ribbon that the blade of the black scythe had drawn. The other side of the ribbon was wrapped around the black scythe blade. He steadied himself in midair. The two of them took a deep breath and followed the ribbon to the edge of the cliff. The sound of rocks tumbling into the abyss sounded as if the cliff was about to collapse again. On the other side, the two of them also helped each other to leave the most dangerous area. However, as he stood on this side of the cliff, he felt a chill run down his spine. The four of them still did not dare to act rashly. The four of them surveyed their surroundings, then looked at the group of people on the opposite hill. His expression changed slightly. Where are Qing Luo and Overlord? Why don't I see them? Earlier I seemed to have seen the Overlord charging towards Ah Luo. Gu Zishi was searching the surroundings as she said, it should be the Overlord bringing Ah Luo to some safe place. The Overlord has Little Nine, Qing Luo also has Qi Qi and the rest, so they should be fine. The few of them looked at the mountain top in front and immediately leapt up, heading towards the direction of Ren Jianying and the rest. Ren Jianying and the rest's faces were filled with complacency. They still want to look for Yi Qing Luo. They probably don't know that Yi Qing Luo has already been sent to another space by our palace lord. Huangfu Fengyan laughed complacently. Add bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 45-52. Without Yi Qing Luo around, can they still survive? Huangfu Dongyu's lips curled into a sinister sneer. Huangfu Fengyan sneered, of course not. These few trash, in the lower realm like Nirvana realm, they might be experts, but this is heaven realm, they. Who do they think they are? We can finally kill those two eyesores, it's so satisfying. Huangfu Dongyu and Huangfu Fengyan exchanged glances as they smiled. Don't be happy too early. Huangfu Qifei's gentle face turned gloomy as he said calmly, haven't you noticed, the Overlord has disappeared too. After Huangfu Qifei's reminder. The two of them then reacted. Yi Qing Luo wasn't the only one who disappeared in the quake. There was also the Overlord. Huangfu Fengyan's complacent smile froze on her face. She clenched her fists tightly as she gritted her teeth in anger, that woman. What's so good about that woman? The Overlord is actually so protective of her. With the Overlord following her, even if it's that array, there's no way to kill that woman. That's right. Who said we're going to kill her? Ren Jianying sneered as she raised her chin. Her half-squinted beautiful eyes flashed past a trace of ruthlessness. Even if the Overlord entered the array, as long as the palace lord isn't willing to let them out, there's no way they can leave that space. As she said that, she smiled as she looked towards a certain direction behind the crowd. There, sat a tall figure dressed in a black robe, entirely shrouded in darkness. He held a bronze mirror in his hands. Both eyes were staring at the bronze mirror without blinking. Wisps of black aura constantly lingered around his body, rolling and surging. When Ren Jianying looked at that person, a pair of beautiful eyes revealed a faintly discernible charm. Her lips curled into a smile, her condition was excellent, perfect. It made her exquisite and beautiful face look even more beautiful and dazzling. Anyone could see that. Ren Jianying was interested in him. However, the man who was stared at by such a beautiful lady with an inviting gaze full of tender feelings, didn't even raise his head, as his gaze was fixed on the bronze mirror. As if he had seen something. Under the black robe, the pair of sinister black eyes were instantly covered with frost. The cold air around his body also dispersed at this moment. Suddenly, he slammed the bronze mirror into the ground. His aura also followed suit and became filled with killing intent. For a moment, the atmosphere became extremely oppressive and strange. The three Huangfu siblings didn't dare to speak again. Ren Jianying hid the seductive look in her eyes and glanced at him and the bronze mirror that was pressed on the ground. If her memory served her right, the copper mirror in his hand was used to see what was happening inside the spell formation, which meant that he could directly see everything that Yi Qing Luo and Dmo Xian had experienced after they entered the array. After the palace master of Gloomy Palace sent him into the formation and into another space, he held the bronze mirror and looked at the situation inside the formation. How could it suddenly? Why is he so angry? Did he see something in the bronze mirror? Why do I feel like this palace lord of secluded darkness palace was extremely concerned about that young lady called Yi Qing Luo? At the thought of this, a trace of unwillingness flashed across Ren Jianying's eyes. She was interested in the palace lord of secluded darkness palace, because she felt that in this world, only someone like the palace lord of secluded darkness palace, someone with status and identity, was worthy of her. She was merely working together with the palace lord of secluded darkness palace, tasting some benefits from the palace lord. Chapter 45-53. If she could be with the palace master of secluded darkness palace, she became the mistress of the palace of abyss. It would be even easier for her to get what she wanted. She wouldn't have to submit herself to an elder of the palace of gloomy shadows who could only say a few words. Thinking of this, Ren Jianying calmed herself down and put on a beautiful smile as she walked towards the palace master of the secluded palace. Her steps were slow and graceful. When she walked in front of the palace master of the gloomy palace, she leaned forward and smiled gently at him. "Palace master, do you think I'm right?" When Ren Jianying leaned forward, her shiny black hair cascaded down. The fragrance of a woman seeped into the nose of the palace master of gloomy palace. There were even a few strands that landed on the back of the man's hand. The palace master of the netherworld palace frowned and looked up. Under the black robe, his pitch-black eyes stared coldly at Ren Jianying. The emotions in his eyes were extremely calm. There was not the slightest fluctuation. "Get out of my way," he said, his voice cold and authoritative. Ren Jianying's smile froze on her face. But very quickly, his smile returned, and he slowly straightened his body, putting some distance between them. She then asked with a smile, "Palace master, do you think I'm right?" The eyes of the palace master of the netherworld palace were indifferent as he asked word by word, "What did you say?" Ren Jianying, his face contorted in embarrassment. She tried her best to please him. He didn't even notice her. Ren Jianying took a deep breath as she maintained her smile. "I've told Huang Fu and the other young masters and young miss that as long as Palace Lord refuses to release them, Yi Qing Luo and the Overlord will not be able to escape from that array, right?" She paused and then continued, "Palace Master, your formation is the best in the world. Even venerable sovereigns are no match for you." The eyes of the Palace Master of the Netherworld Palace dimmed. He hung his head again. He shifted his gaze away from Ren Jianying and stared unblinkingly at the bronze mirror on the ground. His aura became much colder. Ren Jianying was very sensitive to other people's emotions. Naturally, he felt the flames on the body of the palace head getting colder and colder. She hurriedly changed the topic. "Palace Lord will definitely be able to achieve your wish, but those two from Huangfu family are here and they seem to have sensed that Yi Qing Luo's disappearance is related to us. I wonder how Palace Lord is going to deal with those 4 people." "My wish has been fulfilled." The voice of the Palace Master of Netherworld Palace was a little low. He gently placed his hand on the back of the bronze mirror. His tone was filled with disappointment. He was afraid that he would never be able to fulfill his wish in this lifetime. He suppressed the unnecessary emotions that he shouldn't have and followed Ren Jianying's words to look forward. On the other side, Yan Xiaoyi and the other 3 had already landed on the mountain that they were on. Yan Xiaoyi wielded the black scythe and charged over aggressively. It was as if they were going to fight. The pupils of the palace master of the Netherworld Palace constricted. How to deal with them? They were the people whom Yi Qing Luo valued the most. If they were hurt, Yi Qing Luo would be upset. Especially when the people who hurt them were his men. Those two young masters from the Huangfu family, Palace Lord had previously promised to hand them over to the Huangfu family to deal with. Those three are now waiting for Palace Lord's opinion. Ren Jinying sensed the hesitation in the palace master of the Netherworld Palace. She smiled and reminded gently, "Listen to Palace Lord's words." The palace master of the Netherworld Palace's eyes wavered even more. Chapter 45-54. After some time, his fingers suddenly clenched tightly. The bronze mirror on the ground was once again held in his palm. He spoke calmly, "Up to you." Ren Jinying's red lips rose as her voice turned coquettish, "Then I shall make this decision on behalf of Palace Lord." The Palace Lord's gaze fell back onto the bronze mirror as he didn't bother about Ren Jinying. Ren Jinying, who didn't get any response, flashed past her eyes with a sliver of embarrassment and humiliation. But she didn't reveal any of it on her face. Instead, she smiled and bowed towards him as she turned around and returned to the front of the three Huangfu siblings. "Patriarch Ren, what were you talking about with that palace lord earlier?" Huangfu Fengyan's gaze turned towards the man dressed in black robe. Anyone could tell what she was thinking in her eyes. Ren Jinying saw the emotions in Huangfu Fengyan's eyes as she snorted in disdain. But the smile on her lips was very shallow, nothing much, just asking Palace Lord how he intends to deal with those four people. After all, they are Yi Qing Luo's good brothers. What did Palace Lord say? Huangfu Fengyan's expression changed slightly when she heard that. She knew the Palace Lord's feelings towards Yi Qing Luo. If it was because of Yi Qing Luo's relationship with Palace Lord. But if he didn't let them do anything to Huangfu Sheng and Huangfu Jin, they really didn't dare to act rashly. Ren Jinying's eyelids drooped slightly as she seemed a little shy and sweet. Palace Lord said, "Everything is up to me." Huangfu Fengyan's expression froze as her eyes were filled with disbelief. Ren Jinying's intention was extremely obvious. Coupled with her shy and timid expression, Chu Yunsheng couldn't help but sigh. It was hard not to misunderstand. But, wasn't that Palace Lord of Seclusion Palace in love with Yi Qing Luo? Palace Lord really dotes on Patriarch Ren. Huangfu Qifei suddenly stood in front of Huangfu Fengyan as he gave an elegant smile. "I wonder how does Patriarch Ren wish to deal with those four people?" Ren Jinying arrogantly raised her chin as her brows were filled with cold arrogance. "Since I've promised you on behalf of Seclusion Palace that I will let you deal with those two Huangfu bastards, I will keep my promise." Huangfu Fengyan felt that something was amiss. She frowned and said, "Ren family head, are you sure Palace Mistress really?" She had yet to finish her words. Huangfu Qifei pressed down hard on her arm. The strength of his 5 fingers seemed to have pierced into her flesh. Huangfu Fengyan's face turned pale from the pain, and she couldn't say a single word. Huangfu Qifei smiled warmly and continued Huangfu Fengyan's words. "Many thanks, Patriarch Ren. Then leave the 4 of them to our Huangfu clan." Ren Jinying's ice-cold gaze swept past Huangfu Qifei and landed on Huangfu Fengyan. She sneered and curled her lips. Her red nail lightly pressed against her lips. The Huangfu family really needs a smart person like you to take charge of the situation. Huangfu Qifei's smile grew even wider. "Many thanks for the praise, Patriarch Ren." Ren Jinying waved her hand arrogantly, turned around and walked towards the palace master of Twilight Palace. He looked at her back as she left. Huangfu Fengyan's expression was extremely ugly as she bit her lower lip and asked softly, "Third brother, what do you mean by this?" "It's fine if you're stupid at home, but in the current situation, you're still stupid. Even if you die, you deserve it." Huangfu Qifei slowly let go of her wrist, and the space between his brows was still as warm as jade. But the words that came out of his mouth were bone-chilling. Chapter 45-55. Huangfu Fengyan took a deep breath. Third brother, I know that we need to borrow her strength, but she is only one of the 4 great Tian families, and our status is not lower than hers. Shut up. Huangfu Qifei snorted coldly. What you said was in the past. But now, there are no 4 great families, there is only a Ren family. Huangfu Fengyan stared at Huangfu Qifei in a daze. After a long time, she finally spoke with a hoarse voice. Third brother, do you want to fight big brother for the position of patriarch of the Huangfu clan? Rob? Huangfu Qifei smiled warmly, and there was faint warmth between his brows. Didn't big brother seize his current position from Huangfu Jin as well? Huangfu Fengyan widened her eyes in shock. Huangfu Qifei moved closer to her. Lifting his hand, he placed it on her shoulder and patted her gently. Since this position doesn't belong to Huangfu Jin, it can belong to big brother. Why can't it belong to me? In terms of strength and strategy, I am above big brother, am I not? Fourth sister, think carefully about how you want to choose your future path. Third brother really appreciates you. As he finished speaking, Huangfu Qifei wore a warm smile and walked in the direction of the 4 people who had come to greet him. Huangfu Fengyan was stunned on the spot. His heart was thumping non-stop. What did third brother mean by that? Was he forcing her to make a choice? From a long time ago. She knew that this seemingly warm and gentle third brother wasn't as simple as he seemed on the surface. They also knew that third brother had always been smarter than them. But he had never thought that he would be interested in the position of patriarch of the Huangfu family. In a vast and empty space that stretched as far as the eye could see, Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian walked for a long time, but the surrounding situation didn't change at all. Yiqing Luo didn't sense any other signs of life. She tugged at Dmo Xian's sleeve. Ah, Xian, isn't something amiss? No matter how we walk, we seem to be going in circles, not to mention meeting other people. Dmo Xian halted his footsteps and lowered his eyes to look at her. You've finally discovered it. Yiqing Luo, you mean, you already knew? Dmo Xian nodded. That's right, from the moment we entered, we already realized it. Yiqing Luo. Then why didn't you say so earlier? I want to be alone with you for a while. Dmo Xian wrapped his arms around her slender waist and buried his head into her neck, inhaling the delicate fragrance from her body. Yiqing Luo's heart immediately softened. The expression on his face also softened. This man really knew how to soothe her temper. Yiqing Luo helplessly stared at him as she stretched out her hand and pinched his face. I think you are intentionally trying to see me embarrass myself. Dmo Xian's large palm clasped her little hand as he chuckled. I just want to look at you. Yiqing Luo. Flirt again. She put on a serious face and got down to business. If I'm not wrong, this array has separated us from Xiao Yi and the others. Unless we break this array, otherwise we won't be able to see Xiao Yi and the others. Xiao Yi and the others will be fine, right? Separate her from her brothers. Was their goal to target her, or Xiao Jin and Huangfu Sheng? Those 3 Huangfu family siblings all had strong ambitions. Towards Xiao Jin's existence, they were fearful. Towards Huangfu Sheng's existence, they were jealous and indignant. If they were given a chance, they would definitely not let Xiao Jin and Huangfu Sheng off. End of this chapter. Chapter 45-56. You can rest assured. Dmo Xian raised his hand and smoothed out Yiqing Luo's creased brows. Don't belittle those brothers of yours. Yiqing Luo smiled as she pursed her lips. I've never belittled them, but the opponents aren't ordinary people. This was the Heaven Realm. They were the Huangfu clan and the Gloomy Palace. That Gloomy Palace had been jumping up and down for such a long time. It wasn't just her that couldn't handle it. Even the Emperor Palace had not been able to find out who the mastermind was until now. It was enough to show that the power behind the Dark Abyss Palace was far beyond her imagination. Don't forget, Xiao Jin is the acknowledged successor of the Huangfu clan. Dmo Xian pinched her nose. With the Huangfu family's golden pupils, his strength is not necessarily below yours. Yiqing Luo was slightly shocked. Dmo Xian rarely praised someone. To be praised by Dmo Xian, it meant that the other party was really strong. Who would have thought that Xiao Jin, as the successor of the Huangfu clan, would actually possess such formidable strength? He even pretended to be a pig to eat a tiger. If he had known earlier, he would have left most of the matters to Xiao Jin to settle. Hearing what Dmo Xian said, Yiqing Luo's heart finally heaved a sigh of relief. She clasped her hands together. The most important thing now is to find the eye of the formation, break out of it, and rush to their side as soon as possible. Pausing, she used a suspicious gaze to size Dmo Xian up and down. Don't tell me you know the method to break the array but refuse to tell me? In all honesty, I really don't know. Dmo Xian put on an innocent face and shook his head sincerely. Yiqing Luo stared at him suspiciously for quite a while. Scheme didn't find anything. She almost lost herself in his charms. Yiqing Luo retracted her gaze and pressed her hand on his elegant face. I'll trust you one more time. Let's go look for the array eye. Dmo Xian laughed lowly. A warm breath sprayed onto her palm. They were like feathers, tickling her heart. Yiqing Luo moved her hand away and pressed her palm on his chest, rubbing it hard. She rubbed the itch in her palm onto his body. She glared at the man, warning him not to tease her again. Then, he turned his gaze to the surroundings. The Palace of Gloomy Shadows had specially separated her from Yan Xiaoyi and the rest. There must be a reason. He wanted to trap her in the formation. Or was he trying to achieve something through this formation? Upon closer inspection, in this empty space, the surroundings seemed illusory, but vaguely, there were strands of black aura lingering around. But the black gas, as it approached the two of them. However, he avoided the two of them and brushed past them. Originally, Yiqing Luo didn't pay much attention to those black chi fluctuations. However, she suddenly thought of something. He stared unblinkingly at the black aura floating in the air. As expected, he found that the black gas was floating in the same direction. Found it. Yiqing Luo held on to Dmo Xian's hand as they headed towards the direction where the black chi was floating. After a while, the scene in front of them was no longer empty. Instead, it was a bloody catastrophe. The sky was dyed red with blood. The field was littered with corpses. The war drums continued to beat. The two of them stood in the middle of the battle. This is... The sudden scene caused Yiqing Luo to be in a daze. Chapter 45-57. But, their position wasn't very good. There were people in all directions. Blood splattered. The corpses fell. Only by flying up into the sky could they avoid being accidentally injured by the soldiers. But what made Yiqing Luo astonished was they didn't evade. Whereas the weapons in the soldiers' hands directly pierced through their bodies, slashing towards the soldiers at the side. Yiqing Luo's evading action stopped just like that. She tried to stretch out her hand towards those soldiers. After waving it for a while. Indeed, it didn't affect the soldiers at all. The battle was still ongoing. The both of them seemed like a transparent existence. No one could see them. This should be a mirage. Dmo Xian held her little hand tightly. Follow me closely, be careful. Yiqing Luo nodded. A sudden scene of the battlefield. Who knew what tricks were they playing? But don't you feel that this battle looks like a battle between cultivators? Yiqing Luo felt a little strange. The sky above the battlefield rippled with layers of profound waves. The soldiers were using their profound energy, attacking each other. The corpses were in an extremely horrifying state. Dmo Xian looked at the huge battlefield in front of him. As he nodded slightly, this should be a battle between cultivators, and I don't know if it's an illusion, but I feel that this scene is exceptionally familiar. Familiar? Yi Qing Luo's brows creased slightly, as her gaze swiftly swept across the surroundings. This battle actually made Ah Xian feel familiar? Could it be that he had participated in this battle before? This way, let's go. Dmo Xian pulled her, as he headed towards the battlefield. His footsteps were a little messy. The hand which held Yi Qing Luo's hand slightly increased the strength. Yi Qing Luo pursed her pink lips as she looked at the man's back view. Her fingers also tightened as she held his hand, as she quietly followed behind him. Just at this moment, suddenly on the battlefield, a violent gale arose, lightning flashed and thunder roared. The darkness corroded, as though it was going to swallow the entire battlefield. While the soldiers were panicking, another burst of fiery profound wave, as it spread in all directions. That dazzling red glow, like a blazing inferno. In an instant, it intertwined with that darkness. Immediately following that, Yi Qing Luo saw an extremely familiar figure appearing on the horizon. That person was dressed in a blazing red robe, and his aura was disdainful. A red veil covered half of her face. The only thing that was revealed was a pair of beautiful eyes that shone with a captivating light. Yi Qing Luo's pupils constricted abruptly. God, Emperor's Emperor, yes. The woman in red was Feng Gu. She would never remember wrongly. Why did she see Feng Gu in the illusion of this battlefield? Hadn't she already left the barbaric Bloodbone King's memory space? Feng Gu continued to release dazzling profound light. It suppressed the wave after wave of darkness. The battle was quite exciting. Yi Qing Luo was puzzled. He kept staring at Feng Gu, sizing her up. She wanted to ask Dmo Xian. But she discovered that Dmo Xian's eyes were staring at Feng Gu without blinking. His eyes were deep and dark, unable to see through his emotions. But Yi Qing Luo could feel it. Dmo Xian's current mood was obviously not the same as usual. She thought about it. She still did not open her mouth to disturb Dmo Xian. The killing on the battlefield continued. Both sides fought for an unknown period of time. The scene in front of their eyes suddenly changed. That valiant-looking Feng Gu who was still on the battlefield earlier, was now lying weakly on the bed. That face, which was extremely similar to Yi Qing Luo, was deathly pale. There wasn't any spirit in his eyes. Chapter 45-58. Yi Qing Luo's heart felt as though it was pricked by a needle, with some faint stabbing pain. Her breathing quickened as she stared unblinkingly at the deathly pale face. Her throat felt as though it was being choked by something. That little hand which was grabbing onto Dmo Xian unknowingly increased its strength. The sovereign of the Divine Emperor, how could he become so weak? I've roughly guessed the reason why the Nether Palace used this array to trap you. Dmo Xian stretched out his long arm and pulled the young lady into his embrace. The palace master of the secluded Darkness Palace didn't get any information he wanted when he entered the barbaric Bloodbone King's memories. But you, in that memory, can see memories that they can't see. So, they want to use this memory to dig out what you know about that period of time in the past and get the clues they want. Yi Qing Luo's eyelashes fluttered, but I didn't see any of these in the Bloodbone Barbaric King. This should be the part of the memory that the Palace of Gloomy Darkness knows. Dmo Xian's vision looked towards the young lady who was lying on the bed not too far away, who looked extremely similar to Yi Qing Luo. He sighed softly. The Palace of Darkness wants you to know about this part of your memories. The Tenebrous Palace also had the memories of the Divine Emperor? Could it be, the person behind the scenes of the Palace of Gloomy Darkness was also someone from that time? That person. Why did he let her see this memory of the Divine Emperor? Stay awake, don't be affected by everything here. Dmo Xian's gentle voice was close to her ear. His warmth enveloped the girl. I don't know what method Tenyu Palace is using to search your memories, but, as long as your will is strong, Tenyu Palace won't have the chance. Yiqing Luo took a deep breath and clenched her fist. All right. As the two of them spoke, Feng Gu suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. The blood was obviously jet black. She was poisoned. Yiqing Luo's pupils contracted slightly. The sovereign of the Divine Emperor was poisoned. How did she get poisoned? Yiqing Luo's heart was in a mess and she was just about to step forward to check out what poison it was. He had yet to move. He saw an old woman in her 50s, holding a baby in her arms, walking over quickly. When he saw the old woman, Feng Gu, who was lying on the bed, immediately propped herself up and looked at the baby with infatuated eyes. Quick! Quick, bring Luo Luo over. Her face was filled with reluctance and attachment to the little baby. Master. The old woman carried the baby to Feng Ji's bedside and handed him over. Feng Ji's hands were shaking. He gently touched the soft baby. It was like he couldn't wait to tightly pull her into his embrace. However, he was also worried that he would crush the baby, so he kept controlling his strength. Luo Luo. I'm sorry. Feng Ji's reddened eyes stared deeply at the baby's face. Since you were born, mother has not been able to properly accompany you, now. I can't keep you company anymore. Tears rolled down Feng Ji's cheeks. The baby was still ignorant. He grabbed Feng Ji's hair with his little hands and squeaked. Feng Gu held the baby and talked for a while. Until that face was so pale that it looked like he would stop breathing the next moment. She couldn't bear to shift her vision to the old woman. Grandma Bai, carry Luo Luo well. Chapter 45-59. The old lady carried the baby carefully as she looked at Feng Gu with heartache. God Emperor, Qing Luo is right here, this old servant will take good care of her. Take a rest first and when your body is better, you will be able to accompany Qing Luo. Feng Ji's gaze returned to the baby's face. Her eyes were burning as she stared greedily. As if she wanted to remember the baby's face in her heart. That kind of tenderness. That kind of reluctance. There's no time. Her voice was very hoarse, as if something was strangling her. Grandma Bai, you know. I don't have time. The old lady's eyes turned red. No, God Emperor. You will be fine. She placed the baby in her arms in front of Feng Gu and said in a choked and anxious voice, God Emperor, look here, this is your child. Don't tell me you can bear to leave her alone. Feng Ji's lips twitched. As if she wanted to laugh. But she couldn't muster up any strength. Can't bear to, how could I bear to? Her voice was so soft that it was mixed with the wind, making it sound unreal. But it's too late, there's no time. Feng Gu closed her eyes in pain. The tears overflowed from the corners of her eyes and slid down her cheeks. The old lady was almost choking with sobs. Feng Gu adjusted her breathing and let the old lady carry the baby, facing her face. She took a deep breath and closed her eyes again. Suddenly, her 5 fingers moved. Pierced into her heart. Blood, blended with her blazing robe. The air seemed to be filled with a thick smell of blood. The old lady cried out involuntarily, God Emperor, what are you doing? The old lady panicked and wanted to put down the baby to stop Feng Ji's self-harm. But before she could move, Feng Ji's painful voice stopped her. Grandma Bai, don't move. The moment she spoke, her breathing became messy. It affected the wound on her chest and the pain was twitching. That originally pale face, at this moment, looked even paler. There was no trace of blood on it. This was not only the old lady choking with sobs. Even Yiqing Luo, who was standing by the side, couldn't stop her tears from flowing down along the corners of her eyes. Yiqing Luo was totally unable to control her own emotions. His heart ached to the extreme. Dmo Xian gently patted her back as his gentle lips kissed her hair. his actions soothing her gently. Finally, Feng Ji's hand slowly stretched out. On her palm, there was a sparkling paste with blood on it. It was shaped like a heart. It shone with the flowing light of profound waves. When the old woman saw the thing in Feng Ji's palm, her face immediately turned pale. Divine Emperor, what are you doing? This is your profound heart jade. In this world, there are only 2 divine phoenix profound heart jades. Feng Ji's voice was barely audible. It was hard for him to even make a sound. One is in Qing Luo's body and the other is mine. By Mama, I'm very clear about my own situation. I can't continue to accompany her. This is the only thing I can do, and also, something I must do. Feng Ji's voice was getting weaker and weaker. Even the sound of his breath was a little erratic. She flipped her palm. That blood-stained profound jade heart was surrounded by a profound wave. Endless profound waves, lingering around. Tightly, quickly, and orderly, they rushed into the baby's body. The dazzling profound light filled the entire room. Chapter 45-60. If they continued to endure, the other party might just stand on their heads and pee. Mu Qilan gripped her sleeves tightly. Her face under the veil was also restraining itself from twisting. She raised her head and looked at the young girl standing on the second floor. Looking from this angle, the light of the luminous pearls was ravaging the surroundings. It was as if it had coated the young girl with a layer of velvet light. The young girl who had already taken off her veil and was facing the heavens without any makeup. Under this light, her skin was sparkling and translucent, and her devastatingly beautiful face came into view clearly. Just a single glance. Even though she was a woman and was jealous of her, she still couldn't stop her heart from skipping a beat. Mu Qilan's 5 fingers suddenly tightened. The face under the veil suddenly turned deathly pale. Imperial Madam, since the Overlord has personally acknowledged you, you shouldn't rely on the Overlord's trust in you to be so unscrupulous. Mu Qilan criticized her word by word. Since I've come to the auction, I'm a guest of the auction. Yet because of my relationship with the Overlord, you let this senior from the Underworld Palace chase me out of the auction. How can you act like a mistress of a house like this? Her words paused slightly, and her gaze suddenly shifted to Pei Sheng, who was standing beside the auctioneer. Or is this how the Treasures Exchange House treats its guests? Basically, everyone who came to the auction knew how important the Treasures Exchange House was to Pei Sheng. In order to complete the Treasures Exchange House's wish of this auction, Pei Sheng had specially delayed the day of going to the Heaven Realm with Old Master Huangfu. It was sufficient to show exactly how important this auction was to him. Mu Qilan's words. Not only, 7. 3, little at #net. Chapter 45-61. Under Su Qingbing's worry and anxiety, she brought along the Blood Mercenaries group's elite mercenaries. The moment she struck, those killers could only wait to be captured. Yi Qing Luo and Su Qingbing walked to the backyard. Bo Songyi was supporting Gu Zixi as they walked over. Group leader, Zixi is injured. Gu Zixi smiled at Su Qingbing. Group leader, I'm fine, it's just a small injury. Su Qingbing looked at Gu Zixi pale face and frowned slightly. What's going on? Why are there killers here? She raised her eyes and glanced at Bo Songyi. Have you checked clearly? Who are these killers here to kill? Mentioning this, Bo Songyi's expression sunk. He glanced at Pei Sheng's direction from the corner of his eyes and gave a cold harumph. The trouble that lad created has caused Zixi to suffer. I'm really fine, it has nothing to do with Sheng. Gu Zixi heard Bo Songyi's tone and immediately opened her mouth to explain. Bo Songyi couldn't help but sneer. He can't even protect you, what kind of man is he? Gu Zixi bit her lower lip as a sliver of anger surfaced on her face. Bo Songyi. You. Before she could finish her words, she was interrupted by Su Qingbing. Sheng? Not calling me brother anymore? Su Qingbing opened her mouth. It indeed suppressed the accusation that Gu Zishi was about to say. Gu Zishi's face blushed slightly as she slowly lowered her eyelids, looking a little shy. Not brother anymore. TSK. Su Qingbing's lips curled as her elegant face broke out into a smile. Then congratulations, the clouds have dispersed to see the moon. Gu Zishi's face turned even redder. The two of them spoke one after another. Bo Songyi was completely stunned by the amount of information that was revealed. He looked at Gu Zishi in astonishment as his voice trembled slightly. You and that lad. Emin, Gu Zishi smiled as she nodded. The radiance in Bo Songyi's eyes dimmed. But he pretended not to mind as he said, congratulations. Coincidentally, Pei Sheng, with the help of the mercenaries, had restrained all the killers and was anxiously looking for Gu Zishi. When he saw Gu Zishi, he quickly walked over. He stretched out his long arm and pulled Gu Zishi away from Bo Songyi's side into his embrace. He placed his large palm on Gu Zishi's face and gently caressed it. Are you all right? He asked gently. Gu Zishi leaned against his chest, and her pretty face was slightly flushed. I'm fine. When their eyes met, Yi Shiwen's expression changed. It was as if there was no room for anyone else. Bo Songyi looked at his empty wrist, then raised his head and looked at Gu Zishi, who was obviously happy and sweet. His hand, which was suspended in mid-air, clenched into a fist. Su Qingbing walked over and gently patted his shoulder. Then, he walked past Bo Songyi and walked into the courtyard. This melodramatic relationship drama made Yi Qing Luo smacked her lips non-stop. However, she did not intend to intervene in this melodramatic scene. She glanced at the two of them, and after confirming that they only had some superficial injuries, she followed Su Qingbing into the courtyard. When he passed by Pei Sheng, she took out a medicine bottle and stuffed it into his hand. In the courtyard. The mercenaries stood by the side. The killers knelt on the ground, and one by one, their masks were torn off, revealing their faces. The killers had apparently been injected with profound qi, and were rooted to the ground, unable to even commit suicide. The mercenaries stood neatly by the side. The killers were pressed onto the ground in a sorry state. This stark contrast. TSK, to let Blood Red's elite mercenaries come over to wrap things up. This was really a waste of God's resources. You're tuning into the Dreamy Love Stories YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.